welcome fantasy fans to Thursday Night Smackdown. I'd like to apologize for the delay in today's programming. The president was on, so it threw everything back, just like he's setting everyone back in real life. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Jameson Whiskey, a high-caliber whiskey for the highest caliber of man. And now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'd like to welcome the newest member of Thursday Night Smackdown, Nicholas LeBlanc, owner of Team Beats by Ray. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Long-time watcher, really excited to begin this new phase of the show. You know, Thursday Night Smackdown is such a great program we have going on. I'm really excited to be a part of it. I'd like to highlight on my first visit, No Shave November. For all of you men who are manly enough to grow some facial hair, what we're doing is we're raising awareness for men's health, specifically prostate cancer. May they find a cure for this terrible disease so that no man has to get the finger ever again.
Amen, brother. Amen. We need a cure for that some kind of bad.
Absolutely.
So anyway, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. You know, last week, you're new on the show. Welcome. Last week you suffered a tough loss to Commissioner Jablomi. I mean, you picked up a great trade for him. A trade that was good enough that many people in the league considered it collusion.
You know, there was a lot of chatter about that trade. There was a lot of concern in that. Jimmy Graham, #1 tight end in the league 2 years in a row, just went through a major contract negotiation for Greg Olsen, who, let me tell you though, great tight end, 15-point average weekly, good trade. Across the board, we kind of felt that was a reasonably fair trade amongst ourselves as owners. But the truth is, it kind of ended up being one-sided towards the end of the game.
It did. For those of you who didn't have a chance to keep up with the stats, that was a 34 to 4-point trade.
That's exactly right. When the numbers came in at the end of the play, that's exactly what happened. I ended up a little bit better on that trade, and we'll see from there. Also Sanu and Julio Jones was part of that trade, and Julio Jones just had trouble. Atlanta really trying to get their act together, figure out what's going on.
It's tough down there in Atlanta. It really is. But you had to be feeling good going into the Monday night game. I mean, you're up 21 points. He's got a kicker and a flex player that hasn't really done anything all week, and this is the second time now where a kicker has put up 19-plus points on you.
Absolutely. I took a bad beating from Moldberg on one of his first wins over that. And this week, not only did this kicker Vinatieri take me apart, but ODB came in with a fury. For a guy who was out the first 5 weeks of the season, he's come back with a fury. And I really think he's going to be a great option for the Commissioner Jablomi.
He definitely will. That was a great waiver pickup. Smart decision by him. He OD blew you away.
He really did. He really did. Look, let's look at some of the other matchups from the past week and discuss what happened, what went right.
Let's jump into that.
Yep, let's look at WTF and Moldberg. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the epitome of mediocrity. This was painful to watch.
Mediocrity might be mediocrity might be an upsell on this. This was just borderline terrible.
Absolutely.
Just terrible fantasy football.
At one point we weren't sure was WTF, who is a league leader, was going to break 50 points. And what I'm understanding, he had a 30-point player.
30-point player on the roster, and barely broke 50. I mean, I think 76 was his final total.
I believe so.
So you take a 30-point player away, he's with 46. That is an average of 4 points per player. 4 points.
Which is an embarrassment to the league. Moldberg, not a whole lot better, don't get me wrong, but he ended up with the W. He deserved it.
Winning's winning.
Winning's winning, that's right, at the end of the day.
Well, while we're on the subject of that matchup, let's talk about Oob and the Phillip Rivers. -3 points.
Absolutely.
How do you -3 points?
Well, you've got to make better decisions. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this league. Hell, I think Mole owns most of them.
He does.
Look for the trade. Look on the waivers wire. There's a lot out there. What you can't afford is a -3 Phillip Rivers, not this late in the game. You got to have somebody who's going to put up at least positive points for you. I mean, I'm understanding he could put up any other quarterback and would have done well enough to at least score better than what he did.
Absolutely. He could have started Tony Romo, who didn't even play, and he would have had a better turnout. He would have broke 80.
That's exactly right. Well, looking at another matchup, let's go ahead and look at El Rey Remontada for you non-Americans out there. That's the comeback king.
In Mexican, which, by the way, there will be a league vote in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and the Lady Ben to ruling for, we might let him ride the rest of the season out, but for next season we want American names.
Absolutely.
This is not Mexico.
That's exactly right. Well, that game was quite the matchup to watch. I think everybody kind of going into it was really looking for a hot shot win, and that's what we ended up with.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, for a little while there, it became a really competitive bout. I think a lot of them wanted the underdog to at some point say, hey, look, let's see if Comeback can do it, if he can get it. He just couldn't pull it off.
He couldn't pull it off, and to be honest with you, I think he shot himself in the foot a couple times.
He definitely did. And you know, the biggest thing is, as the holder of the Sanchez, he better be concerned. So I'm going to tell you, games like that, this late in the season,
you cannot afford to make it. It's the little mental mistakes like that make it.
That's exactly right.
That's it. And, you know, Colin Kaepernick wasn't the best choice of quarterback.
No. Again, there's so many quarterbacks out there in this league. There's a lot of options. Again, make a trade with Mole, get one of his 10 or 12 quarterbacks,
whatever the league, whatever the max quarterback is, Mole definitely has it.
Absolutely. And also, let me go ahead and give props to Team Hotshot. You put up a great performance. You deserve the win. That's exactly what you came home with. All right, last but not least, and I know you probably don't want to talk too much, especially after all the smack that came out of it, is the Kunas just victory that he took over you. Honestly, I think an apology's in order.
You know, the king of the Kunasses, he stuck it to me. I'm a little sore still. I'm sitting on a cushion right now. For those of you who can't see below the camera, I'm on a cushion. And he really got me. And that's the closest to an apology that he's going to get. He's still terrible. He just got lucky. But he got lucky against me. And that's it.
Well,
enough said.
Okay, well, I can understand that. Let's look at the projections for the next week, see what's coming up, see who's playing, what's going on. Let's start out with, again, Kunas's WTF. This is a battle of the Titans.
It is. Number 1 team, number 2 team in the league playing this week. You know, both of them have outstanding rosters. They did excellent in the draft. You know, and tell you what, Team WTF coming off 2 tough losses, especially after last week losing to the last place person, which is tough for anybody.
Absolutely tough situation, but I'm going to tell you, the biggest thing that WTF suffered was bye weeks. We've got to watch these bye weeks, folks. So I'm going to tell you, that will kill your lineup. You know, every single person on his bench was on a bye. So the good news is this week, with a tough game ahead of him,
all of his starters are back. You know, they're
rested, healthy.
You know, he's got a great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Took a little bit of a shoulder stinger at the Saints game. So he's had a week to rest that shoulder. He should be coming out strong.
Yeah, and after a loss like that, you know, really Green Bay didn't see that coming. I think they're ready for blood, and I think WTF is also ready for blood. I think he's going to come out swinging, and I'm going to cast my vote, Team WTF.
Smackdown's vote is also Team WTF.
All right, well, let's look at our next matchup. Hotshot Self, Commissioner Jablomi. This, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely
game of the week.
Game of the week. Game to watch. We're going to follow this all week long and see who's going to come out ahead. Not only is it a great matchup, the biggest thing is this is going to choose more than likely who will be in that winner's bracket, who will be in that Sanchez bracket. For those of you watching at home, just want to clarify, Sanchez is the loser's trophy. Right now it's held by the Comeback King or the Lady Ben, as we referred to.
As he has so honorably earned the name.
That's right. Well, speaking of Commissioner Jablomi and Hotshot, though, we've looked at some ESPN numbers, and we're looking at Commissioner Jablomi at about 143 and Hotshot at 132, but I just can't agree with that.
I disagree myself. You know, the Commissioner, he's got a good team, but you know, Team Hotshot, I mean, really, he's the team to watch.
He really is.
I mean, he's sitting on his 4-5 record does not speak for the caliber of team that he's got.
Not at all. I'm going to tell you, he puts up steady points every week.
Consistency. That is what makes it in this
And that's
league.
The fantasy.
And he is a consistent
He is the guy to watch out for when you have these bad weeks from WTF, when you have these bad weeks out of Kunas's. This guy will sneak in that back door and tear you apart.
That's right.
You got to watch him. He's a backdoor bandit, that's for sure. All right, next on our matchup is Beats by Ray and the Comeback King. I got to go Beats. I'm sorry here, folks. Not to be biased.
Got to play the home team.
But I got to play the home team. I'm looking at some of the numbers, I'm looking at some of the projections. You know, Benny is set at 140. ESPN's put me around 130. There's a lot of factors in this that we're really looking at. You know, tonight we've got a great opening season coming up. You know, we're in Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati. It's an open dome stadium. You know, the real fear here is weather. When you're looking at temperature, I believe we were in the low to
mid 40s. 16 to 18 mile an hour sustained winds.
Yeah, and winds the big thing.
That affects the passing game, and not only, you know, let's back on the WTF and Kunas game. You know, Kunas has a kicker playing tonight, and 18 mile an hour winds that's hell on the kicker.
Oh, that is
terrible.
Actually substantial. You know,
so you know he's got to be sweating that a little bit.
He's definitely got to be. But I'm going to tell you, what they've got to focus on is getting across the goal line. We've got to see TDs. We can't have 3. You got to get 6 every time. Because 16, 18 mile an hour gusts, there's no way. You just can't depend on
you
that.
You can't depend on your kicker. And if anything, it's going to be, you know, inside the 30. So they've got to, the offense has to at least put up enough to where they're not taking these long, you know, field goal tries from 40 plus yards.
That's
where
exactly
they can keep that wind, in their favor.
Absolutely, exactly right. Great point. On our end, I'm looking at with my team, my players, looking at, hey, I've got A.J. Green, I've got Sanu, both dependable receivers, but with this win, it's really anybody's game. You don't really know. Again, though, I've got to make my prediction, keep it towards the home team. I'm going Beats by Ray.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I'm gonna go the comeback kid on this.
Okay.
I think
I can understand that.
I think the comeback kid's getting a little flack from home. He's still in the bottom 4. He's moving away from last place. But a win right here it definitely secures him a spot in the top 4.
It definitely does. I'm going to tell you,
I think he's going to have his ducks in a line for this week. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go comeback
We'll
kid.
see next week how that played out. Last but not least, let's look at Scoregasm Moldberg. How are you feeling this week?
I feel wonderful this week. I'm playing Mole, who he's technically by points in 7th place. I am holding the last place position right now.
You got to be nervous.
I'm not. Mole he's just terrible. He's starting. Just checked his lineup a few minutes ago. His Nile Davis is still his RB1 spot. Nile Davis is a backup running back to Jamal Charles, and they're playing a very tough run defense this week. Very stingy, giving up about 3.3 yards per carry to opposing running backs. Haven't had a running back break 100 yards on them all year.
Well, and Jamal Charles is on fire.
And
that's
he is,
the other thing. He has come out of that slump he was in early season, and Jamal Charles is absolutely carrying the rock. So I've got to say, I'm going to have to go Team Scoregasm. Folks, you heard it here first. Write it down. Scoregasm's taking the W over Moldberg, who's going to secure that last space slot, hopefully for the rest of the season.
That is the goal. So anyway, now let's get into the best part of the show. You ready to talk some smack?
I am ready for smack.
As the new guy on the show, Beats by Ray, why don't you go ahead and open us up with the smack talking session?
Well, let me just go right into it. Benny, I'm coming for you. I'm going to take myself out of that last place bracket and put you in it. I'm coming hard and I'm coming fast. Keep the Sanchez where it is, son, because that's where it's staying.
Excellent. Excellent smack talk. Now, for Mole, you're just terrible. You're starting the second string running back over anybody else on your bench, but he's second to Jamal Charles, which is just terrible. He might get 3 touches. You started Jay Cutler over Drew Brees. Come on, man. Seriously. It's just, I'm going to beat you harder than your girlfriend beat you when you took her to the fantasy draft. It's just get ready for it. Because when the Scoregasm gets done with you, you're going to want to light up a cigarette. That's how good it's going to be. So,
well, guys, thanks for having us. We appreciate all of our fans, all of our support. Again, we want to thank our sponsors, Jameson. Great guys to work with, great liquor, a higher caliber man, to tell you the truth.
That's right. It's really a fine whiskey. But tune in next week, 7 p.m. Hopefully the president won't be on, so there'll be no delays. Until then, you just got Smackdown.